Hello, dear students. Welcome to the Bajirao IS Academy. Today is 28th November, and we are going to discuss the daily Hindu newspaper analysis. So, we have to discuss three articles, and these three articles is very important because it is related to the GS paper 2. And when we talk about GS paper 2, sometimes to answer the question in the UPSC means these topics becomes challenging one because this requires the analytical approach, and to develop analytics, to develop understanding, it is very important to understand any article in an analytical way. Okay, just reading the articles will not give you the suffice analytical power. You have to think beyond. Okay, that we call as out of the box thinking. So to these type of practices, and this will boost your confidence as well. So in today's discussion, the first one is related to the challenges of 21st century. Although we know that the world is gifted with lots of challenge, but we as a humans are adding burden. How? You can recall the history, whether it is world history or whether it is related to the history of India or any nation. Challenges were existing, and we wanted to sort it out. But at the global level, we see that world war or the technological challenge or the challenge related to the climate change, it is all happening. It is all visible, and no one can like escape from that. Okay, so if we want to ask you a question, what are the challenge that the 21st century is facing? Tell me. Just try to think what are the challenges. Okay, and here I want to give you some points and try to correlate. Does terrorism is a challenge? You can say yes. Climate change? Yes. The technological challenge? Yes. What are the technological challenge? Try to elaborate in that dimension. Okay, so the peace that we want to establish in the global world seems to be a little bit difficult. And when we talk about the recent incident like Israel Hamas war or the Russia Ukraine war, all reflects the challenges of the 21st century. Okay, so what is the solution ahead, and will these challenge is going to be overcome? We all are going to discuss. And the second article is related to the reforms in the Supreme Court. Although Supreme Court is the highest judicial body in India, but Supreme Court do faces certain challenge in terms of pendency of the cases, challenge in terms of the people's accessibility to get justice from the Supreme Court, because Supreme Court is located in Delhi. And if a people of the northeast, let's say, or South India want to get petition in the Supreme Court, or they want to get appeal in the Supreme Court, so it may be challenging because they have to travel farther distance to Delhi. Okay, and when we talk about the judiciary issue, you know that people have to visit frequent times. Can be the date, can be the hearing. Okay, so this is another challenge, that is the accessibility. So to find a solution, what we need to do, there is a mention in this article. And the third article is related to the fading Maoism or the left wing extremism in Chhattisgarh. And when we talk about Maoism or the left wing extremism, it is a challenge to India's internal security. Okay, and to deal with internal security, we have to deal with these LWE or the Maoism. But you can observe that not all the state have the issues related to the left wing extremism. These issues are restricted to some of the state, some of the northeastern state, like take an example of Chhattisgarh or some region of Madhya Pradesh or Jharkhand. Okay, but Chhattisgarh is known for these type of incident, and that's why there is a relation why development in Chhattisgarh is underdeveloped. Okay, so the recent elections in Chhattisgarh, a state legislative assembly election, where despite these left-wing extremism and Maoism try to influence the election, try to influence the people that do not vote for the candidate. But despite that, the people's awareness is increasing, and now people are more participating in the election, and the recent participation of the people in the state legislative assembly election showcases this outcome. So, if people are taking the enhanced approach for their development, for their security, that means the welfare, the development will be arriving. Okay, and sooner or later, the issues related to the extremism, okay, will be going to vanish. So we all are going to explore it. And if you are enjoying our lecture series, please do like, share, subscribe. And also, if you have any doubt, you can comment in the comment section as well. Okay, so let's start with our editorial discussion. But before that, we have a question for you, and the question is related to the prelim section, and it deals with the polity topic. Okay, so solving the polity question gives you confidence that which type of questions is being asked, and try to solve by yourself by taking the pyq question, okay, the booklet, and try to analyze the type of question, try to analyze how we can eliminate the option, how can choose the best option, because sometimes UPSC do give the question where you have to choose the best option. Okay, so try to incorporate into that, and it is not a one time task, you have to do on a continuous basis, so that it becomes a habit of your mind, and if it becomes a habit, so it will not be difficult to solve the question and to come to the answer, to the correct answer. Okay, so that's the point. And the question is, consider the following statement. Statement 1: the legislative council of a state in India can be larger in size than half of the legislative assembly of that particular state. Statement 2: the governor of a state nominates the chairman of legislative council of that particular state. So the question is about the legislative council, and the first statement is saying that, let's say, if a state legislative assembly have 100 seats, okay, so maybe that state do have the legislative council. Okay, so the legislative council with respect to its strength, so can be its size will be larger than 50%. That means here in this state legislative assembly have 100 seat, and two, the legislative council will having more than 50 seats. Okay, that is the 50%. Okay, we are taking the raw example. Okay, but I try to explain the statement, because if you will not understand the statement, there will be a confusion. So what should be the maximum strength of the legislative council? The statement 1 is asking to you. Okay, so try to find the answer. And with respect to the statement 2, who decides the chairman of the legislative council, and based on that choose the correct answer. Okay, and try to give your answer by pausing the video and in the chat box, because without interaction there will be no enjoyment. Okay, please do interact, and we will be providing you the solution in the last session of our discussion. Okay, so let's move to the article discussion. The first article is related to GS paper 2, and when we talk about the challenges of 21st century, but before understanding, let's look at the challenge of our world with respect to the historical perspective. So when we dive into history, you know that world had faced numerous challenges in terms of terrorism, in terms of world war, in terms of the polarity, like the hegemony of certain country, dominance of certain country, and exploitation of the people, exploitation of the vulnerable sections. Okay, all we were observed in the historical times. But did things changed in the 21st century? Seems to be, but seems also not to be. Why I am saying this statement? Because when we try to explore the challenge of 21st century, it is more complex and it is more widening. How we can count number of challenge arising, whether it is the terrorism related incident that we have seen with the beginning of the 21st century, along with the conventional conflict between the state related to the border. Okay, and we have the technological challenge, the challenge of artificial intelligence, the challenges of deepfakes, and the challenges associated with the cyber crimes and hacking. Okay, and the most pressing challenge of this current century that may end the world itself is your climate change. Okay, and you know the impact of climate change, and we have dealt with many articles with respect to the impact of climate change on food security, on health, on disease. Okay, so these are the challenges associated and being increasing in nature. So one by one we will be exploring. First of all, when we talk about the challenge related to the terrorism, so with the start of 21st century, you know the various example like 9/11 terrorist attack in America, when Al Qaeda attacked the Twin Towers in New York, and it caused loss of lives, and it raised the concern in the USA that if in USA it can happen, so there is a chances that terrorists can spread in other nation as well, where the security is not up to the mark. Okay, and you know, with other example, like in India, we have the Mumbai attacks on November 26, 2008 by Pakistani based Lashkar-e-Taiba. Okay, so these are the examples. And when we talk about the rise of ISIS, Islamic State, what does it showcase? That these outputs, although we try to end terrorism, but despite all of our initiatives and actions, these are appearing from time to time. And the recent example is your Hamas attack done on Israel, we have seen. Okay, so that's the point. So, one is the challenge related to the terrorism, and we have seen numerous examples. Okay, and you know the impact of terrorism. First of all, the civilians, the humanitarian crisis, and the isolation of uncertainty, unpredictability, that what is going to happen. Remember the days when IS, the Islamic State, was dominating in Iraq and Syria, and their influence was felt around the world. The fear. Okay, so that's the point. And when we talk about another challenge, the challenge related to the conventional conflict. And when we talk about conventional conflict, it is related to the border issue. Okay, and it can have a historical origin. Like we have seen the Russia Ukraine war. Okay, so in Russia Ukraine war, what is the issue? The issue related to the historical perspective that Ukraine was once a part of USSR, and now they are more inclined towards West, and they were more interested in joining NATO. And that's why Russia felt insecure, and that's why for their interest they attacked Ukraine. And you are seeing that 18 months occurred but no solution. So war can be declared very easily, but peace comes with very much difficulty. That's the point. Okay, and another challenge which we are seeing is like China USA conflict. Why this conflict? Because China is challenging the hegemony of the US. Okay, and if any country challenge the hegemony of any other country, definitely that country will feel insecure. And that we are seeing. And that's why USA and the allied country are making groups. They are taking various incentives like barriers or the security strengthening or the making of the groups like Quad or the AUKUS. All of them tilt with curb the Chinese growth. And recently we have seen that the USA banned the export of certain technological equipments that are required as a raw material for the China or for the Chinese manufacturer, okay, to manufacture the electronic equipments. So why all is being done by the USA despite once upon a time USA was a good friend with China? It is all because of the Chinese challenging the hegemony of the US. Okay, but in this article, there is a saying that the USA, which is approaching a policy in the Indo-Pacific region to deal with the China, like they are approaching the same approach that they had did with respect to the Russia-Ukraine war. Okay, but this will not be a result because there is no military arrangement like the NATO we have seen in the Western country, and they have loose untested security arrangements. Okay, so the organizations which US is forming, okay, with the like-minded country, so there is a lacking of security strength. Okay, so that's the point which has been highlighted. And now we have the technology risk. So when we talk about technology, the 21st century can be known for historical technological revolution because the technological revolution in terms of artificial intelligence, in terms of the components of AI, quantum computing, quantum data. Okay, so these are huge benefit as well as huge challenge. And we can take an example. Suppose we have lots of satellites, okay, military equipment that are running based on the satellite communication or internet communication. If a cyber attack is done, okay, and the equipments which were used for our purpose goes against us, so it can damage our own asset, it can damage our own people. Okay, so that's the point, and that's why in the military section, in the defense section, if technology is being integrated, that it also comes with a risk. Okay, and you may have seen several movies, science fi movies, that talks about the challenge, okay, of the technology. Like we have seen the robot, okay, we have made for the welfare, but it was used and it was transformed into an enemy robot. So you can take an example. Okay, and also with the introduction of artificial intelligence, and this is the beginning of artificial intelligence, in the coming times this will be broadened, this will be diversified, and this can be utilized in different sector, in the defense sector as well. But what is happening, try to understand that artificial intelligence in the coming times will decide what to think by ourselves, and it will also decide the perspective, because you can see that some of the media channel are also utilizing artificial intelligence for the content creation, for the content delivery through videos. Okay, so what does it means? That they want the content to be delivered, to be showcased based on their interest, based on not the neutral perspective. So this can also be the scenario, and you can see the example of deep fake. Okay, and with the rise of digital penetration, we have the digital hacking, the cyber related crime as well. You can track from the data, like digital tracker logged more than 5.5 trillion cyber attack worldwide in 2021, and on average we have 14.5 billion attack per day. So you can see, you can observe the implications if these attacks are done in the defense and military related information. Okay, so that's the point. And when we talk about another risk, so we have the another risk waiting, that is the health risks. And You know that with deforestation and with the decline in quality of biodiversity, okay, so pathogens, viruses, microbacteria all are emerging, and they are affecting the humans, and we have seen the worst example in terms of the COVID-19. Okay, and who can forget the COVID-19 pandemic? But scientists are warning that these type of epidemic or the pandemic may come in the future, because we are not taking any step to address that. Okay, and the another and most pressing challenge is the climate change and the associated health impact and the food security and many more than, because it has numerous impact. We have dealt with many articles. Okay, so try to read, try to watch our previous lecture that we have talked about the climate change and the impact, and tell me what will be the climate change impact on the health. Tell me, just because I have dealt with this article. Okay, so that's the end of the article. Hope you understood. Now we are shifting with the second article, and it is related to the reform in the Supreme Court. Okay, so when we talk about Supreme Court, you know that highest court in the Indian judicial system. Okay, so we have the integrated judiciary. Integrated judiciary, that means we have the lower court. Okay, and above that we have the high court, and above that we have the apex court, that is Supreme Court. So that means the Supreme Court has wider power, wider jurisdiction, and the jurisdiction applies to whole of India. Okay, so if your fundamental right get breached, so you can directly approach to the Supreme Court, because Supreme Court is the protector and guarantor of your fundamental rights. And not only that, if there is a dispute between the states or between the state and the center, so the government, the disputed party, will go to the Supreme Court to sort out the dispute. Like we have seen the cases of governor, that some state government, whether it is the Kerala, whether it is the Punjab, whether it is the Tamil Nadu, they went to the Supreme Court for the dispute resolution. Okay, that is the importance of the Supreme Court to resolve the conflict of interest between the state government or the center and the state. Okay, so these comes under the original jurisdiction. We will discuss one by one, but we have to mainly focus in this article about the issues that is dominating in the Supreme Court and what the reforms is needed. Okay, so it serves as a constitutional court as well as court of appeal, but try to understand the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court first of all. Original jurisdiction, and in this jurisdiction, Supreme Court hears cases related to the dispute between the states and between the state and the center. And we have the advisory jurisdiction, under which the Supreme Court advises the president. Okay, and we have the appellate jurisdiction, and here if a person is not like satisfied with the judgment of lower court or the high court, then they can appeal in the Supreme Court. Even the state government appeals in the Supreme Court, okay, related to the judgment from the high court. Okay, so these are the appellate, that means appealing. Okay, appeal done in higher court. Okay, so that's the point. And we have the advisory jurisdiction, we have already told you. Okay, so that's the point. And when we talk about the hearing of the Supreme Court, so Supreme Court can hear the cases, whether it is related to the constitutional cases and whether it can be related to the civil or the criminal cases. Okay, so what we are seeing, that even the constitutional case is very much less in number, but because of the excessive of the civil and the criminal case, the hearing of the constitutional case becomes very much slower. Okay, and that's why the issue related to the Aadhaar, the issue related to the like electoral bond, okay, they remains in pendency for the longer time as well. So this is not a good thing. So to resolve this issue, what needs to done? So there is a suggestion that separate the bench that deals with the constitutional case and that deals with the non-constitutional case. So when we segregate, so the Supreme Court can easily deal with the constitutional case, and this will increase the efficiency and will reduce the burden of pendency. Okay, so that's the first suggestion. And you know that constitutional case that deals with the cases that may violate the provisions of the constitution, so it is heard by the constitutional bench, but the number of judges to hear the constitutional case in the bench should be minimum 5, and it can extend to 7 as well, 9 as well, and even more than 9, depending on the seriousness of the case. Okay, depending on the opinions required for the solution of the case. Okay, and we have the article 145 clause 3 of the constitution that do provide setting up of constitution bench. Okay, and minimum 5 judges is required, and you know that for advising the president there is a need to have minimum 5 judge bench that will advise the president if president seeks opinion from the Supreme Court. Okay, and when we talk about a reference under article 143, it is actually related to the president to consult the court. Try to remember these articles because there can be a direct question with related to the article. And also tell me, what are the articles that deals with a special leave petition, SLP? Okay, tell me this article, and what is a special leave petition, because this was a question which was asked in the UPSC prelims. Okay, so try to explore that. Okay, if I will tell you all of the answers, you will not work. So try to explore by yourself, try to read. M. Lakshmi can't find the special leave petition article, the power of the Supreme Court under it, whether the High Court do have SLA, SLP or not. So try to research on that. Okay. So now we are coming to the issues related to the Supreme Court. So basically we have the broad jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, but there is also a challenge with respect to the broader jurisdiction. What is the challenge? That the Supreme Court hears petition, the Supreme Court hears the dispute, whether it is the constitutional cases, whether it is the non-constitutional cases. Okay, so the burden becomes very much. Okay, and with respect to the introduction of public interest litigation, you know that when we talk about PIL, so any person, if they are related to public interest case, okay, so they can file PIL in the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court will deliver judgment on that. Okay, but this led to over filing of the PIL, and even the frivolous PIL gets filed. Okay, and this increases the pendency of the cases. And you know that from the data, we have about 79,813 cases as pendency. Okay, so a structural changes is needed, and here there is a suggestion that separate constitution bench should be there. Okay, and there is a suggestion from various law commission report, okay, and from various judgment of the Supreme Court. So try to incorporate these like a commission report reference should be mentioned in the main answer writing. Okay, so like in 1984, the 10th Law Commission of India proposed that Supreme Court be splitted into two divisions. One will be dealing with constitutional division, and the other will be dealing with the legal division. Okay, so it will ensure that the justice is more widely available, and it will also decrease the fees, because when we talk about the fees, whether it is related to the war, doctor, the judiciary, or the police, so in these cases, you know, the burden faced by the people, specifically the common people. Okay, so even sometimes these common people are not able to afford the justice because of the lack of money, so you can also correlate with that. And there are other reforms which has been suggested, like in Bihar Legal Support Society versus Chief Justice of India 1986 case. Okay, the Supreme Court stated that it was desirable to establish a national court of appeal. Now, understand the perspective which was given in this judgment. Why the Supreme Court talked about National Court of Appeal? Because currently, Supreme Court will hear the appeal, no doubt. Okay, But currently, when we talk about the case related to the appeal, Supreme Court deals with the maximum case with respect to the appeal. Okay, so this increases the burden and this minimizes the time to hear the constitutional case. Okay, that's why there was a suggestion that National Court of Appeal should be created so that any appellate related case should be diverted to this court, and if Supreme Court will have the single responsibility of dealing with the constitutional case, so this will segregate the uh, case, and it will help the Supreme Court to be free from the cases of appeal. Okay, and it will boost the productivity of the Supreme Court as well. And when we talk about accessibility issue, try to remember we have given you the examples initially, that let's say we have a map of India. Okay, so if a person in the northeast, okay, let's say we have the Supreme Court in Delhi. Okay, so if a person in the northeast have a like less satisfaction with respect to the judgment of Guwahati High Court. Okay, so if he or she want to file an appeal to the Supreme Court, so he has to visit the Delhi. Okay, then he has to contact lawyer. Okay, and then there will be the time that will be come for hearing. Okay, so frequent up and downs will have to be done by that people. Okay, and this decreases the potential of the people to go to Delhi because the challenges becomes complex here. Okay, the unknown city and the fees and many more things, the hurdles. Okay, so what is the suggestion here? In this case, to increase accessibility, the 229th Law Commission report recommended that 4 regional bench, that will be at Delhi, the another will be Chennai or Hyderabad, the another will be Kolkata and Mumbai. Okay, to hear the non-constitutional case. So it will increase the accessibility. Okay, a wider location. So that will also deliver more justice to the common people as well. And along with, we have the increment in the number of judges from 8 in 1950 to 34 in 2019. And tell me, who is responsible for increasing the number of judge of the Supreme Court? And also tell me the about High Court. Okay, so that's the question which was asked in UPSC prelims. So I want to ask this type of question because these were the question which was asked in the prelims. This will also makes you feel that what we are reading is like the need of the examination. Okay, so when we talk about the constitutional case, so today Supreme Court like issues around 8 to 10 decisions each year through the constitutional bench of 5 or more judges. Okay, and when we talk about if we are able to split the work of the Supreme Court, okay, in terms of the constitutional bench and final court of appeal, so it will ensure the greater judicial stability, consistency to the Indian judicial system, and it will also ensure that common people, if they want to go to the Supreme Court for resolution of their issue, so they can visit. Okay, they can have more accessibility and with less time to be delivered for the justice. So that's the point. Hope you understood. Now we are shifting to the third article, and third article is related to some more interesting discussion. Why? Because when we talk about the internal security, when we talk about development, okay, so for development, what is needed first? The stability of a state or the stability of a nation. Okay, so if a nation is stable, if a state is stable in terms of political stability, in terms of security, okay, in terms of protection of the citizen, in terms of protection of the investment of the company, so that region will be developed, that will grow, that will prosper, and that will boost the surrounding state, the surrounding towns. Okay, so that's the point. But if there is a challenge related to the internal security of a certain state or a region, so that state or that region will become backward, and there will be lack of progress, underdevelopment, less education, less employment, and it will boost poverty, hunger, okay, and challenge to the human potential, most important, okay. So that's why development is very much necessary, and for development there is a need to deal with the internal security challenge. And now we are coming to the internal security challenge. What are the internal security challenge? It can be related to the left wing extremism, the Maoism, okay, the extremism, all of that. So why we have taken some context? Because when we talk about certain state, that is Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, or the Jharkhand region, okay, or some of parts of the northeastern region. So these are the region that faces the challenge related to the internal security, okay, and because of that, you can observe that these states are less developed, underdeveloped, faces several developmental crises, okay. So what is the solution? Well, we will discuss, but our focus is related to the Chhattisgarh. That how Chhattisgarh and their citizen like took decision that they will vote in the election, they will not support the extremist group, and they need development, okay, rather underdevelopment. So that's the point. And why I am saying you, because recently the election was conducted in the Chhattisgarh, okay, and you know that Chhattisgarh is known for Maoist activity, Naxalites, left wing extremism, and the most dominated region where the Naxalism presence is there is the Bastar region, and it do comprises many districts, but we are not going into the nitty gritties, okay. We have to understand the perspective here, okay. So basically, despite we have the Chhattisgarh facing this type of crisis, but in the recent election we have seen the participation of the people, despite the extremists, Naxalites told or threatened the people that do not vote, okay, do not participate in the election. But this shift of the people thinking towards voting, towards participation, gave a big blow to these extremists, okay. So that's the point. And to ensure that people participate in higher number, the security needs to be tightened, and the government, the authority did that. Like the number of security forces or the battalions were increased, okay. And you know that Chhattisgarh has 14 districts affected by left wing extremism, okay. And for the Bastar region, there was additional recruited Bastar fighters force of more than 2000 local youth. So they know about the integrities of the guerrilla warfare that are done, that are performed by the Naxalites. Tell me the guerrilla warfare. What do you mean by it? Okay. So this helped that the elections should held peacefully and no violence. Okay. So that's the point. And despite the Maoist request and the Maoist threaten, the people did participated in the election, and the first phase of the election was done in November 7. Okay, done on November 7, and people do participated in the large number. And what is the outcome? Try to understand that overall polling in the first phase increased by about 1.5% from 76.5% in the previous time to 78%. So that is a big achievement that people are participating more and more, and they are coming to cast their votes, okay. So they need development, they need progress, they need education, health, and the benefit of the government scheme. So it will be done if the rule of law, the stability of the region prevails, okay. And there are still like region in the Bastar area of the Chhattisgarh where we have the security patches, okay, security vacuum, but slowly it is going to be filled up. And if it gets filled up in the coming time, that will be happening because of the focused effort of the security forces and the government, okay. So the day is not far when the boycott call, which is done by the left-wing extremism, will lose ground, and thereby the development, progress, prosperity will start increasing. Okay, so that's the end of the article. Hope you understood. So what does it indicate? That development needs stability first. If there is a stability, there will be the economic activity, there will be the investment, there can be the growth in education, there can be the establishment of hospitals, okay, employment. So that's the point. And if we are able to cater with the internal security challenge, then definitely our progress will be multiplied in multiple times. Okay, so that's the end of the article. Hope you understood. And when we talk about the question related to the prelims, so what is the answer? So basically, the answer is none of these, neither one nor two, because if any state do have legislative council, so the maximum seats in the legislative council will be 1/3 of the seat of the state legislative assembly. So if a state having legislative assembly 300, legislative assembly seat have 300, so what is the maximum seat of the legislative council? It will be 1/3, that means 100. Okay, it will not beyond be 100. And when we talk about minimum, so minimum suggested is 40. Okay, so 40 to 1/3 of the state legislative assembly seats. Okay, and when we talk about the second statement, the governor of a state nominate the chairman of legislative council. No, governor do not nominate the chairman. Governor do not have the responsibility. Okay, government appoints. Okay, when we talk about the nomination, so it is not done with respect to the chairman, and the chairman is from the member of the legislative council itself. Okay, hope you understood, and please try to give answer as much as possible that we ask the question in the session. Okay, so that's the end of the article, friends. Hope you understood, and we will meet again with the next autumn article, and bye bye.